Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, November the 14th, 2019. It is currently 7:24 a.m. Central Time, and this is a live broadcast for the Spreaker app. Now, for those who will hear a recording of this live broadcast, let me just encourage you, take a few minutes out of your busy day, go to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and do a search for the Spreaker app. That's Spreaker, Spreaker, right? Get the app. Download the app. Once you have the app downloaded, do a search for VBC, which stands for Victory Baptist Church. That is us, all right? And then once you find us, please go to every one of our podcasts, tap the little star to favorite us, and please sign up to follow us. That lets us know that you're actually following us. That's important so we can determine the effectiveness of the Spreaker app. And it gives us an idea of how to move forward in the future, determining different ways to get our messages, out there to, as many people as possible. So please sign up for the Spreaker app. It would be very helpful. If you don't know how to do that, email me at newsif@yahoo.com. newsif@yahoo.com. Simply say need help with Spreaker, and I will send you all the instructions, and I will definitely help you do just that. Hopefully today we get the final update on our church app. We have a church app. I'm not advertising it in recent live broadcasts and recent podcasts because, there's all kinds of issues going on because our company that we have our app through, they merged with another company. And so our app is supposed to be transitioned from its current platform to the new platform. And let's just say we're in week 3? I think we're in week 3. I still don't really know what's going on. On November the 5th, I was told, hey, it'll be done tomorrow. We're in November the 14th. Still not done, okay? I still don't know what's going on. So, we're focusing on the Spreaker app. So please get the Spreaker app so we know that the people who had the other app are transitioning over. Because if it is the plan we have to go with, we don't want to lose anyone in this transition from possibly our church app to the Spreaker app. So, but we're not here to talk about all of that. I do have to take the opportunity whenever I can to at least try to inform people about what's going on. Most people probably don't even care, but if you do, now you have a little bit more information, all right? I have to take a drink here real quick. All right, because it's early. I haven't really been to sleep. Didn't feel like it. And now my voice has that effect of not sleeping for days. Okay, so that's okay though, because I hate sleep. I have there's more important things to do in life than sleep. All right, but right now the more important thing is we're going to talk about a news story that I think is very interesting. And let me set this up this way. A couple of weeks ago, I did a very short live broadcast. It didn't really go well. I think the phone was ringing, and who knows, there was some other kind of problem. So, but I think the live broadcast is still available somewhere on Spreaker. But there was a news story, and they talked about, and I'm paraphrasing the headline, something like the falling away from Christianity is being overstated, or it's not being stated accurately. And they made an argument that while it may be true, right, that people are turning away. Or I think the way they say that the turning away from religion is being overstated. I think that's the way the headline stated. But they talked about how, you look at some statistics and people seem to be leaving Christianity. Church attendance is down. You have more and more people now who identify themselves as having no religious affiliation, sometimes referred to as nuns. That we have a culture that they will argue that they stated in the article that many people would argue that is becoming more and more secular. That what is happening, people are turning away from religion, and they're using the statistics from Christianity and lower church attendance and some of those things as proof that the society is becoming more and more secular. They're like, we're well into a post-Christian society. It's becoming a more secularized society, and that is what is happening. The article made an argument that that's not an accurate understanding of what's happening in culture. They made an argument that yes, People may be turning away from Christianity. They may be turning away from certain things like that, but they're turning to other forms of spirituality, other forms of maybe paganism, other practices like witchcraft, other things like they're turning away from one form of spirituality and embracing other forms of spirituality. So we're not really becoming a more secular society. We're just changing our spiritual worldview, our spiritual affiliation, our, using, this term, changing teams, right? We're going from the Christian team to another form of spirituality. And that was the argument made in the article. Now, I was going to come back and do more broadcast about the article, but they moved the article from the free site to behind a paywall, and I didn't feel like paying to be able to read the article. So we never really returned to it. But that is the foundation for what we're about to talk about. Right? And I think this is very important for Christians to understand, because when you listen to Christian radio, Christian talk shows, Christian podcasts, you hear a lot of discussion about how secular society is becoming. Now, if the article was right, that is a wrong understanding of culture. If the culture is not becoming more secular, but becoming more spiritual, but they are adapting their life and adopting, other forms of spirituality, then it's going to become imperative that the church and Christian broadcasters and podcasters deal with these alternative forms of spirituality. Challenge these other forms of spirituality. Now, I can see we live in a culture that obviously embraced all different forms of relativism, and that your truth is not true. Your truth is not absolute. My truth is not absolute, because there is no absolute truth. Embracing alternative forms of spirituality would be natural. Well, I believe this, you believe that, we're both right. Who cares? You're a Christian, I'm not a Christian. I believe in this form of spirituality, you believe in that, who cares? If you throw out the idea of absolute truth, well, alternative forms of spirituality, you pick spirituality that works for you. You pick the spirituality that makes you feel better, that makes you feel good. It gives you some sense of being connected to something greater than yourself. It's like, a buffet of spirituality, and you just pick what's best for you. So is our culture... Okay, let me ask this question. Is our culture becoming more secular, or is our culture just becoming more spiritual, just not a spirituality that is connected to Christianity? That's going to be left up to people who study society to figure that out. But as Christians, we need to at least have our finger on the pulse so that we can best challenge the culture and speak truth to it. So I think it's a very interesting perspective. And the reason I start with that perspective, the reason I lay that foundation down, is because of the news story that I read just a few minutes ago. This comes to us from Sky News. I believe I got a notification on my Apple News about this. I don't know. I saw it somewhere. I was actually trying to have my morning devotional time, and I got distracted. Yeah, when you're using your iPad to do your Bible reading, and then you get notifications, it's probably a bad idea. It's probably good to turn off your iPad when you're having your morning devotional. But I was doing my morning devotional, and the next thing you know, I'm reading this news article, and the next thing you know, I'm picking up the iPad and hitting the go live button, and here we are. Okay, so I've got to make the best out of this, because technically I kind of messed up my morning devotional time. And I was looking at, I won't go into everything I was looking at because it was kind of interesting. We may return to it later today. But here is the story. From Sky News, it was published Thursday, November the 14th, 2019. All right, so this is new, right off the press, all right? A new article, so we're trying, I always like to try to stay up to date with what's happening in my world, and this headline definitely caught my attention. Here we go. Witchcraft, child abuse cases increase by a third in England. Witchcraft, child abuse cases increase by a third in England. Now, let's stop right here. we have talked a lot, when we say we, it has been discussed much by many in culture, in news, and podcasts, that England, the United Kingdom, and that in large portions of Europe are becoming a more secular society, right? That they're becoming a secular society, and what is happening in their society ultimately will be the truth here in the United States of America. And a lot of times when people speak of how secular the United States is becoming, they point to its following the trend of the United Kingdom. Well, here we have a news article in supposedly a very secular part of the world, and we read that witchcraft child abuse cases increased by 1/3 in England. Now, did everyone miss it? When everyone was saying, hey, everyone's becoming secular, did we miss the fact that maybe they weren't becoming secular? They were just turning away from Christianity and looking for some other form of spirituality. Did we miss it completely? That's the major point I want to get across right here before we get into the details of this story, which are somewhat horrific. Before we get into the details here, that's the question. Sometimes Christians do not recognize what is happening within culture. Then we deliver a message that is not speaking to the culture because we don't really understand what is going on within the culture. If we're sitting there saying, hey, the country is becoming secular and we need to try to approach this secularism, with a spiritual message. Well, wait a minute. Maybe the people weren't turning to a secular worldview. They were turning to a spiritual worldview, but they weren't a Christian viewpoint. Understanding is very important, but this seems to be at least, let's say, a circumstantial piece of evidence to prove this ongoing theory that the shift is not to secularism, it's to spirituality. This seems to be at least one more piece of evidence to support that hypothesis, to support that theory. All right. Let's read so there's the main headline. Witchcraft child abuse cases increased by 1/3 in England. And then underneath that, they have this statement. Campaigners say the rise in the number of cases is alarming, but that the real scale of the problem may be greater. So they're going, hey, this is a major problem, but it could be even worse than we think. Well, if that's the case, then you're saying that those turning to witchcraft, that number is increasing, and there are some turning to some form of witchcraft which involves the abuse of children. Let's see what they have to say here. The number of children in England being abused because of witchcraft beliefs is on the rise, according to new figures. Child abuse based on faith or belief, which includes witchcraft, spirit possession, and black magic, increased by 34% in the past year, said the local government association known as the LGA. All right, now that's 34% increase. Now, again, they're saying that what the numbers they have may not even be a true indication of how big the problem is. And again, these are children being abused based off faith. Now, I want to make sure we are very fair here, okay? Which includes witchcraft, spirit possession, and black magic. There could be some forms of Christianity that clearly believe in spirit possession, right? I mean, all Christians believe in spirit possession to some level, but there are some Christians who believe, anytime anything goes wrong, someone could possibly be possessed of a devil, and then they go through some kind of deliverance ceremony. Within Catholicism, you have an exorcism kind of thing, and in others, you have some kind of, laying on hands, yelling and screaming, rebuking the demon, and all kinds of things like that going on. And you have some different, so just make sure you understand that they have witchcraft and black magic, but spirit possession will put it in the realm of Christianity, or at least some forms of Christianity. So we need to be fair there. It's not just an increase in witchcraft, but there's at least a part there that could be possibly connected to some forms of Christianity, especially within some forms of the charismatic world. All right. In fact, I think they're going to give an example from one of those. Let's continue with some of the statistics here. Around 1,950 suspected victims were identified by councils in 2018 through 19, rising from 1,460 in the 2016 and 2017, I guess, reports. So it was 1,460 in 2016 to 17, and it raised to 1,950. And of course, we're still not done with 2019 unless they've already stopped the reporting. We'd have to know, how they're working their calendar there. Experts believe the real figure may have been higher due to a lack of awareness about the issue. So they believe there could be even a greater number than what they currently have. But the numbers are clearly increasing. The figures also revealed that the number of girls either having had or being at risk of female genital mutilation, known as FGM, female genital mutilation, FGM, reached as high as 1,000 cases this year. That's an increase of 6% from the previous report. So we've got abuse occurring. We've got this, obviously, some kind of rise in witchcraft, black magic. And we have female genital mutilation occurring. And these are occurring connected to witchcraft, black magic, or some other belief system. All right? A belief in witchcraft and FGM, which is female genital mutilation, can sometimes be linked, though experts say it's not true in most mutilation cases. All right? So you have some form of female genital mutilation. They say it's sometimes connected to witchcraft. They say it's not true in most mutilation cases. Well, I would stop right there and we'd have to ask an important question. Well, what other belief systems out there are connected to female genital mutilation that's not being reported by Sky News? They mention a possible connection to witchcraft. Is there possibly, and I'm just going to throw this out there, a possible link to some forms of Islam? Is it possible? Now, I think we could talk about the rise and the spread of Islam into Europe. Right? Is that possible? That there's it's just interesting Sky News doesn't mention that. They mention witchcraft. They don't mention the possible, and they want to mention female genital mutilation. They connect it to witchcraft, and then they say that, but it's not the link in most cases. Well, then what? You're writing an article about belief system and child abuse. If female genital mutilation has any presence within Islam of any kind, of any type, should you at least report that? Well, they don't. Why not? Well, can you not say anything negative about Islam without fear of threats and possible death? I'm not trying to assign motive here. I'm trying to be fair. I just found it interesting that they tell you, well, they mention the witchcraft connection, and then they tell you that, well, that's not the case in most situations. But then they don't tell you what is the major link. I think that's kind of interesting. The National FGM Center, that's obviously a center tracking female genital mutilation, has been doing research and providing education and training into faith-based abuse since 2015. He said both sets of figures are hugely worrying and of significant national concern and probably does not reflect the true prevalence of this hidden crime. All right, so they're saying the numbers are far worse. They speak to the person who's the head of the National FGM Center. They said the rate at which the child abuse linked to faith belief has risen as it is alarming and unacceptable. He said, we know faith-based abuse. Now listen, this is very important here. I want you to listen to this. This may be the key paragraph in this entire report. He said, now they're speaking to the head of the FGM Center, which obviously tracks female genital mutilation cases. And he says that currently what they're seeing is alarming and unacceptable. And they link it to faith and belief. So these female genital mutilation cases are occurring because it's linked to some kind of belief, some kind of faith. Now, they placed it with witchcraft, and then they say that's not the case in most cases, but they clearly are linking it to some kind of faith or belief. They just won't mention a possible connection to Islam. And we could, we may have to do a report on that at some point. But here is the paragraph that I think is key. It especially for Christians to listen to. So the head of the National FGM Center, he said this, and I quote, "We know faith-based abuse is often linked to when families experience some kind of misfortune, whether it is a child with a disability, a parental mental health, or when some of these families experience exclusions because of poverty." Right? So they link this abuse to when families experience some kind of misfortune. Something bad happens in the family. All right, so something bad happens in the family. Why does it lead to female genital mutilation? What is going on? I continue the quote. They try to make sense of what they are experiencing through a lens where they have this belief system where there is the spiritual realm, and what happens there has an impact on what happens here. End quote. So here's what we have. We have people in a society. They're moving away from Christianity. They're embracing other forms of spiritual beliefs. And something bad happens here. And they, in their belief system, believe something bad happens here because something is not right in the spiritual realm. So then they believe they need to do something here in order to appease or satisfy the spiritual force, so then it will change their fortunes in the here and now. So something is not right, right? Something is not right in the spiritual realm, and something as bad is happening in their life. Financial, physical, something is going wrong. And then they look for, okay, what can I do here to appease that spiritual force? What can be done here? I want you to understand, this is, from a Christian perspective, their spiritual belief system is flawed. It's giving them a misunderstanding of how to interpret the world around them, and they're applying their wrong understanding in a very horrific way, which leads to a child being abused. Spiritual beliefs, ideologies have consequences. Now, we live in a culture that says, well, you can believe what you want to believe. I can believe what I want to believe. No, we want to figure out what truth is. We want to figure out what truth is. Christianity teaches that we have a merciful God, a God of grace, a God of love, who we can pray to when things do not go right here. And we understand that in many cases, just because things go bad in our current situation, it doesn't mean God is angry or mad at us. It means we live in a fallen world, and we're going to experience trial, tribulation, pain, and suffering in this world. Our hope is in Jesus Christ and for an eternal glory and an eternal salvation that removes us from this sinful world and removes us from the presence of sin. And a glorified body, and there will be no more pain, no more death, no more tears, etc., etc. Christianity has a different perspective. We don't say, well, something went wrong. God must be angry. Now, what do I need to do to try to appease God? No, we believe God's anger was appeased on the cross of Jesus Christ, and we turn to Him. And we trust in what Christ accomplished on that cross, where the wrath of God was poured out upon Him. So a completely different worldview. Now, yes, we do believe God can chastise us in this world. He can bring chastisement. But we know that just because something bad happens in someone's life, it may have absolutely nothing to do with you supposedly doing anything wrong. In fact, the Bible gives us an entire book where a man suffers great, horrible tragedy, but he had done nothing wrong. And the book of Job, all right? Now, we could still say God set that up, and something was going on in the spiritual realm that impacted his life, but it wasn't that he had all of a sudden do something to appease God, because he had done nothing wrong, all right? So this gives us a chance to try to speak to a society going, wait a minute. Let's talk about your spiritual beliefs. Your spiritual beliefs is leading to the abuse of children. It's leading to female genital mutilation. Your spiritual beliefs are wrong. We have to go to this. It's not about a secular worldview. It's about a spiritual worldview. That's a very important statement. And let me go back and read those two paragraphs again. So the head of the National FGM Center, the Female Genital Mutilation Center that tracks these kinds of abuses, he states, "We know faith-based abuse is often linked to when families experience some kind of misfortune, whether it is a child with a disability or parental mental health, or when some of these families experience exclusion because of poverty." Let me continue to quote. "They try to make sense of what they are experiencing through a lens where they have this belief system where there is the spiritual realm, and what happens there has an impact on what happens here." He added, "They use children as a scapegoat for that misfortune that they are experiencing." So something bad is happening, they don't have an answer, and they know they need to appease the spiritual thing, so they use the child as a scapegoat. They use the child as some kind of, I don't know, let's do this to this child as an offering, as an instrument to appease the spiritual force, to give them better fortune in this life. This is a spiritual battle. This is a spiritual issue. Now, he goes on to say, "It was difficult to provide exact reasons for the increase in case of belief-based child abuse in England." They don't even have a good explanation of what is happening. I think I can interject here and add my own thoughts. You don't understand what's going on, but I think it is becoming clear. When people turn from Christianity, they reject Christianity. You've got empty churches all over the United Kingdom. People are not attending church. They're not reading the Bible. They're not studying Christianity. When they leave Christianity, they don't leave spirituality. They turn for other spiritual ideas to help them through life, to explain life, to try to give them meaning, to try to give them purpose, to try to give them something. And they look for any alternative form of spirituality that is out there. People are created in the image of God. We are spiritual beings, and people will always be drawn to some kind of spiritual belief because they have this inherent deep reality inside of them that there is something greater than us. There's got to be something to explain our existence. There has to be something to give us purpose. There has to be something more than just what we can see, touch, and feel. There has to be something else to explain love and all the different things that we can experience that just physical world doesn't explain. And they look for meaning, purpose, for something after life. There's got to be something more than the material world, because the material world doesn't ultimately satisfy. So when people leave Christianity, they just don't become immediately, a secular person who now holds to a materialistic worldview. They typically turn to some other form of spirituality. That's what is happening around the world. It's becoming a spiritual matter. That's the hypothesis that is some people are now starting to argue for, and I think there is some truth to it. That doesn't mean there won't be a rise in a secular worldview and a materialistic worldview. Of course, as people turn from Christianity, many will turn to a very materialistic outlook. But I think even more will turn to an alternative spiritual outlook, creating a spiritual crisis. A spiritual crisis that the church needs to speak to. We need to know what those alternative spiritualities people are turning to. We need to address them. Speak to the people embracing them. I think this is very important. Let's continue. He explained that some of this is linked to cases of child trafficking, where children are taken through different practices like witchcraft, black magic, to silence them as a form of control. Now, that's an important part to add, a piece of information to add to the report. Some of these cases is because, children are being, they're involved in child trafficking, and they're using these practices to, manipulate them, to control them, to place fear in them, to use this as a horrible tool of enslavement. They continue. In 2013, an 8-year-old by the name of Alicia was abused and killed by her mother, who believed she was evil and had bad blood after her father left their home in East London. All right. Victoria, who was also aged 8, was tortured to death in 2000 by her great aunt and her partner after a Christian preacher convinced them she was possessed. Now there you have, within Christianity you have some of this, hey, that 8-year-old is possessed, and now basically we're going to do all these horrible things to get the demon out. And again, that this requires a more biblically sound understanding of demonic power, demonic presence, demonic possession. We need more sound biblical teaching on it and get away from some of the craziness that is out there, sometimes even in the name of Christianity. We need to purge that out of the church. The death of Victoria sparked an inquiry as well as a series of safeguarding initiatives, including a national action plan to tackle faith or belief-based child abuse that launched in 2012. All right, they go on to say, rising cases of child abuse linked to faith or belief are extremely worrying and are destroying the lives of children and young people and communities across the country. Children services departments need to have their funding to address the huge demand for help from children and their families and maximize the effectiveness in prevention and intervention work. It says the LGA figures are based on safeguarding assessment data from the local authorities passed to the Department for Education. That concludes the article. Again, this comes to us from Sky News. It was posted today. All right. So what do we do with all of this? How do we make sense of all of this? Here is the thing I would definitely challenge you on. I think this is very important. We need to understand that even though our culture may appear to be becoming more and more secular, that what we may be seeing is a transition from Christian spirituality to alternative forms of spirituality. And as Christians, we need to understand what these other forms of spirituality are. We need to make sure that when we speak of them correctly. We are 100% accurate. We do not misrepresent. We do not misspeak. We get our information from authoritative sources so that we don't look like we're crazy, that we can speak authoritative to them. And we speak to them and we present a Christian spirituality, contrasting it with these other forms of spirituality that are not Christian. That we stand for the Christian message, the Christian understanding of God, the Christian understanding of eternal life, the Christian understanding of spirituality, the Christian understanding of demonic power, demonic possession. We speak a Christian message and how to interpret when things go wrong in our life. How do we handle that? The Christian message about salvation through the death of Jesus Christ. A Christian message of salvation by grace alone, faith alone, because of Christ alone. We have to speak that message clearly and precisely, understanding that we're dealing with is a spiritual battle. Not a battle between spirituality and materialism, but a battle between spirituality and alternative forms of spirituality. Now, that's my hypothesis. That's my theory. I understand that there may be facts that would argue against it, that no, people are turning from spirituality to materialism. But I think we have at least some circumstantial evidence, a growing amount of evidence that's saying, hey, I think what's happening, people are just looking for a different form of spirituality. And with these different forms of spirituality, well, different problems arise. Different issues arise, and Christians have to be ready to address them and speak truth to them. I think that's very important. And we definitely want to pray for all the children anywhere in the world who are especially facing any kind of genital mutilation. That's horrific, and if it's being done in the name of a religion, it needs to be exposed. And I would argue here, now right now I'm in the middle of a live broadcast, so I can't do the research right now. I would challenge everyone listening to this program. Sky News did not do this, right? But we can do this. Look up and see if you can find statistics that speak of the linkage between female genital mutilation and certain sects of Islam. All right. What is the possible connection between female genital mutilation and Islam, or not just Islam, female genital mutilation and religions of any kind. The Sky News linked it to witchcraft, and then they immediately backed up and said, well, that's not true in most cases. Okay, if it's not true in most cases, then what belief system is it linked to the most? Let's say that witchcraft makes up 10% or 20% of female genital mutilation. What's the rest? What's the rest? Now, if it's even linked to some weird branch of Christianity, we need to expose it. Obviously, I wouldn't even call it Christianity, but if some Christian cult, we need to expose it. Doesn't matter what the faith is, if it's connected to it, it needs to be exposed by name. All right, but we want to make sure we're accurate. We don't want to misrepresent. I just found it interesting that Sky News linked it, backed up the link, but then didn't give us what the other linkage is. They just left it out. That just seems, that just is suspicious to me. And again, I could be completely wrong. Maybe witchcraft is connected to female genital mutilation far greater numbers than it's linked to any form or group within Islam. Maybe so. I don't know. I'll let you look that up and let me know. Email me at newsif@yahoo.com. newsif@yahoo.com. Let me know what you find, what statistics you find. Please make sure you have a source for your statistics, because we'll need to verify those numbers. But newsif@yahoo.com. Would love to tell me what you discover, what you found, and maybe we can come back and talk about this some more. But we need to be aware of what's happening in our society. We're supposed to be light. We're supposed to be salt. We're supposed to take the truth to it. We're supposed to speak to the culture. We have to have an understanding of what is happening within it. Which hypotheses do you go with? Do you go with the idea that people are leaving Christianity to a more secular, materialistic worldview? Or do you hold to the idea that they're leaving Christianity and embracing alternative forms of spirituality? Where do you believe culture is headed? What do you think is looking? We're about to enter into 2020. Where is society going? We definitely know it's turning away from Christianity. I've said it before. I think that they're just not turning away. They're turning against. And if other forms of now this is very important. If other forms of spirituality are on the rise, you better be on the lookout for so-called forms of Christianity that begin to embrace alternative forms of spirituality and try to call it Christian. There will be compromises within Christianity embracing wrong understanding of spirituality that is not Christian, but they'll still maintain the Christian name. That is something, alternative forms of spirituality will creep within Christianity. That is something we'll definitely have to be on the lookout for as well. All right, a lot more I could say. Wanted to at least bring this to everyone's attention. I think it's an important discussion to have, and I'd love to get your feedback on all of this. Email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, and we'll probably return to this subject in some way, because I'm definitely trying to follow this trend and trying to figure out where society is going. We'll definitely be talking about it again in the future. All right, I'll stop there. Going to take a break. I got to go back and finish my morning devotional because, I kind of got sidetracked, but that's okay, because I think this is important as well. All right, sounds good? All right, I'm going to take another drink. Thank you for listening to this live broadcast on this Thursday, November the 14th, 2019. Now you kind of have an idea of what's happening in your world. Think about what's happening in your world from a biblical perspective. May God bless you.